Hello, everyone. My name is Liesl. Welcome back to the Fiction Author Business School podcast. My question for you today is this. Do you want your villain in your current work in progress to be truly hated or somewhat understood? Do you know the difference? Did you even know there was a difference? Do you know how to write your villain differently based on which one you're going for? If you've never even considered any of this or are even a little bit curious about it, then this is the episode for you because we're going to talk about it. So stay tuned. Do you yearn to make your living from writing fiction? Do you struggle to finish your manuscript due to block, indecision, or lack of confidence in your story? Have you already published books that just aren't getting the sales you'd like? The truth is, the thing that really makes a difference in book sales is not currently being taught in the fiction author space. And it comes from the story level, not the marketing level. Real talk, if you don't get it right at the story level, no amount of awesome marketing is going to make your book a bestseller. Hi, I'm Liesl. I've got 20 fiction books, 4 genres, the USA Today bestseller accolade, and multiple award wins under my belt. So, obviously I've been around the block a few times. I have a lot of readers that follow me from genre to genre, even though conventional wisdom says that's rare. Why? Because my readers know that I know how to tell a story that's going to make them feel something. And if you can master that skill, you can write anything you want for the rest of your life and know it will be well received by readers, which means better reviews, more gushing, more mega fans, and best of all, more royalties for you. Grab your fuzzy slippers and your chocolate of choice. I'm going to teach you how to emotionally engineer your story into the hearts and minds of your readers on purpose. Let's go. Okay, so the villain training just went into the membership this month, the beginning of this month, and what I teach is deep hero-villain psychology, in which, number one, the villain needs to have their own theme, their own limiting beliefs, and their own internal arc. Now, whether you show that, all of the villain's stuff, in the story is up to you. I mean, some villains are very off-page, and that's perfectly okay. But it does need to be present, and the basic gist of it does need to be communicated to the reader so that they understand, what the hero or heroine is up against. It's just basic villain stuff, right? Number two, there needs to be a deep hero-villain entanglement. So let me say that again. A hero-villain entanglement. What that means is that the hero and villain need to be similar or complementary in various ways. And the reason for this, without getting too deep into the weeds of it, is that from a Jungian psychology perspective, the villain represents the shadow side of the hero, which means there do need to be some similarities. Now, I get all into the details of that, what it is, how to plan it, how to write it so it's communicated to your readers, all of that in the membership. But thinking about this is what gave rise to what I'm speaking about today, which is whether you want your villain to be truly hated or somewhat understood. So here's the thing. When you create your villain in the way that I just laid out, where you give them their own backstory, their own theme, their own limiting beliefs, the readers, as the readers, we understand and have some sympathy for them. Now, that doesn't mean that we love them or that we want them to prevail over the hero, right? What they do in the present is still villainous. It's still not good. But because we understand sort of the trauma that gave rise to what they're doing, we tend to have a little bit of sympathy for them, right? And again, that doesn't mean that they get a pass. It doesn't mean they get to escape justice. It just means we go, well, at least I understand where that's coming from, right? And this is why there are some villains out there that are given really complex backstories, and the audience actually tends to really like them. Think about like Loki from the Marvel universe, right? Yes, it does help that Tom Hiddleston plays him, but even that aside, they do a really good job with making Loki sympathetic. He's very human, and this is the thing is, even when you have villains that you can understand them and have sympathy for them, it's in a very human frailty sort of way. So it's like we understand that what they're doing is immoral and maybe even despicable in some cases, but they also represent human frailty, which obviously it's not good. It's not something that we aspire to, but it is something that we have all experienced before. So we go, I get it. On some level, I've been there before. Maybe I didn't do the extremely immoral things that this person is doing, and I don't agree with that, but I do understand where they're coming from, okay? And that can be a really powerful thing. So that's what I mean when I say you're making your villain somewhat understood, right? It might not even be a moral or immoral judgment. We just understand why it's happening. Not that it's okay or not okay. We just understand why. But by understanding why, it does tend to give us a little bit of sympathy for them, okay? Now, what's the flip side of that? I said, do you want to make your villain truly hated or somewhat understood? I just explained somewhat understood. So how do you make your villain truly hated? All right. So I'm a Walking Dead junkie, and this was about 10 years ago. Walking Dead's a long-running series. It's been going for a long time, but they introduced a villain. Give you a little bit of backstory. We had a character who woke up in a strange place. So it was something where she actually got hit by a car, blacked out, and then she woke up in a different community. She had no idea where she was. She had no idea who these people were. Were they going to harm her? Had they taken her in to help her? She didn't know where the people she knew, who she considered her family, were. So it's a really scary situation to wake up in a place where you don't know where you are. And the leader of this particular community came in, as did another character who was a doctor. And they said, you were hurt. We brought you in. We gave you medical care. We're not going to hurt you, all of that. And then this villain, she was a villain. Obviously, we didn't quite know it at this point. This is the first time we're seeing her. But the leader of this particular community was more of a villain. And the character that had been hurt and woke up there said, I was with someone else. Did you bring him in too? And the leader of this community said, no, when we found you, you were alone. And she's like, we took care of you. We saved your life. So you owe us. And just like that, she became the most hated character in the entire country. Okay, people were online ranting about this person. They could not stand her. Everybody wanted to punch her in the face. I mean, the whole 9 yards. So coming from that example, how do you make a villain truly hated? You make them annoying. Okay, you make them irritating, and the easiest way to do that is to make them entitled. So that's the difference between making someone hated and somewhat understood. And you have to decide which one you're going for with your villain. Now, can you do both? Yeah, you absolutely can do both. Okay, you could create a villain backstory that makes your reader kind of understand and have some sympathy for the villain. But if you want them to be more hated, have them do something truly despicable, like kill a puppy or, betray someone or something. But see, even as I say that, even as I talk about betrayal, even that anything they do can fall into the category of understandable or just plain irritating, right? So you could maybe create a villain backstory where, let's see, maybe you create something where there's a betrayal, but because you have already established the villain's backstory, it's understandable why the betrayal happened. We're not saying it's okay that it happened morally. We just understand why it happened. So, okay, I'm going to need to give you an example here because I'm speaking too vaguely. Let's say that you have a villain who underwent some sort of abusive past, okay? And maybe there's a particular word or phrase that triggers them. Oh man, I'm going to end up making this really horrible. So okay, let's say that you have a villain who was abused. Let's say it's a male villain who was physically abused, like was beaten by their mother. And every time they did something wrong that led to the mother beating them, she would say the same phrase. She would say, I don't know, you're a good boy or something. Like I said, this is really getting horrible. Okay, so the villain, in their mind, always they became conditioned that phrase meant they were going to be beaten. So then, fast forward to present day, they're in your story, and maybe they're actually kind of making nice with the hero or heroine, but then completely out of ignorance, not realizing, of course, because why would they, that phrase is triggering for the villain, they say something similar, like, you're a good man. And that triggers the villain big time. And so then they end up betraying the hero, and maybe something really tragic happens where somebody dies. We're not saying that the betrayal is okay. It was still horrible. It was still despicable. We're still upset that it happened, right? But because we understand the villain's past, that betrayal is actually understandable. We go, ugh. It's not cool, but we understand why it happened. And really, in those cases, and maybe this is really getting down to the crux of it, when you make it understood what the villain does, even though it's morally incorrect and we recognize that it's morally incorrect and we're not on board with it, it comes across as terribly tragic. It's so sad that that happened, because we understand that the reason it happened is because he was an abused child and he was conditioned this way. And we understand that the hero or heroine had no way of knowing that. There was no getting around that, you know what I mean? And so it was just this really tragic turn of events that happened, and then it led to a terrible outcome. You see what I mean? Even that betrayal, we have some sympathy in it, and we have some understanding of it, okay? Or you could do a betrayal where someone lied through their teeth on purpose, and they laughed when someone got hurt, and they were just being very self-serving, and basically they're being a tool, right? They're being a douchebag, or, insert less tame word here to describe them. They're just being a jerk, right? And that is what will make us hate them, because there is no understanding there. And I actually think that it's really interesting. It says a lot about us as human beings that we have sympathy. We do have a lot of sympathy and understanding for past trauma and, things that have happened to people that are tragic. But when someone's being self-serving and being a jerk, we have no understanding for them. We just want to punch them in the face, right? And so that's just kind of what I was thinking about. And just kind of a side note, funny, that villain from The Walking Dead. So, like I said, this was about 10 years ago, and it was before streaming was quite what it is today. And so most people were watching live, and I don't know if all of you remember this, but back when Instagram was still pretty new, you always had to double tap a picture in order to like it. That's gone a little bit by the wayside because they just have a like button now, as the platform has matured and everything. But it became like muscle memory. You would just go through and double tap everything. And I remember doing that to the point where I was on Instagram a lot, so I would go onto other platforms like Facebook, and I would try to double tap, and it didn't work on those platforms because I was just so used to doing it on Instagram. Anyway, so when this happened, when this villain showed up and she said, "You owe us," I mean, that's all it took, and she was just hated, right? And so there were all of these posts going around Instagram that would just show a picture of her face, like an up close, somebody had taken a screenshot of her face, and it would say double tap to slap. And man, those posts got like 300,000 likes. It was so funny. And I remember being a little concerned about the actress, and hopefully she's got a healthy perspective and isn't taking all this hate to heart, because it's not her, it's her character, right? But anyway, the point is, if you want a character, a villain, any character, let's put it that way. Maybe this is even not your main villain, right? But if you want any character to be hated, you have to get under people's skin about it, okay? You have to, it's the difference between saying they're evil, but this is why, and saying they're irritating and entitled and making someone want to punch them in the face, okay? That's really, I know, very scientific and everything, but that's really what the difference is. So all I want you to do is just think about that. It's just something that's kind of interesting that you can take into account when you're crafting your villain, right? I want you to explore the different directions you could potentially take your villain in, okay? Is there a right or wrong? No. Can you do both? Yes. Should you do both? Maybe. It just depends on what serves the story. I will say that in The Walking Dead with this villain, they made her annoying up front. Like, that was literally the first thing that came out of her mouth when we saw her. And then they actually tried to make her more sympathetic over time. She was only in that one season, and they killed her off by the end. But, they did give a little bit of backstory, and you could tell they were trying to make her more sympathetic as they went along and as you understood her past. But it didn't really work. That's what I'm getting at. Maybe you could argue that they just they couldn't really pull it off in that case. Maybe the writing wasn't really up to it. But I don't even think it's that, honestly. I think it's really because they made us hate her so hardcore in the beginning. Nobody was ever going to have sympathy for her. And maybe we should. Maybe that's a failing on our part. But I'm just saying, this is the effect that being entitled has on your audience, okay? So, when you make your audience really, really hate them like that, it's really hard to do an effective redemption arc. Now, most of you are never going to even be trying to redeem your villain, so for most of you it'll be a moot point anyway. But it's just another thing to be aware of. So if you're starting with a villain or even an anti-hero, right, and you eventually want to redeem them, just make sure your readers don't hate them too much, because it can be really hard to bring it back around in redemption if you've made them too annoying or too entitled. But it's much easier if you make them at least somewhat understandable from the beginning. Okay, so that's it. I just wanted to do a little exploration of this because I was thinking about it, and because we did villain training inside the membership this month. If you need help with this, if you need help with your villain, I invite you, as always, to join us in the membership. We go into the psychology of it. We go into what to plan and also how to plan it. I give you the questions to ask. I give you the techniques and the tools to be able to turn on your creativity so that you don't get blocked and you don't get stuck, and you just have this constant flow of ideas at your fingertips so you can figure things out. And yeah, we have a great group of authors in there, and we're going to be going into we're really close to the end of the month now. Where has September gone? We're going to be doing world building training in the next week, so that will be in there too. And yeah, just if it's something that you want to do and you're looking to up-level your writing, then feel free to join us in there. We would love to see you. The other thing that I want to say before I go is that I am once again teaching my workshop on how to craft characters that jump off the page. I did this almost 2 months ago. Probably not quite that, but by the time I teach it, it'll probably be 2 months. And I got a really, really good response to it, really good feedback, so I am teaching it again. It is a free workshop where I just teach you how to craft great characters, basically. It's a 4-day workshop that is taught live. There will be replays. So if that is something that you are interested in or think it could serve you and help you in your writing at all, you are welcome to sign up for it. bit.ly/unforgettable characters is where you would sign up. And I will also put that in the show notes. Okay. So I hope that this is helpful. I hope that it just kind of made you think maybe a little bit differently about your villains, and maybe gives you some ideas about how to take them in some new directions. That's the idea, is just to open up the creativity and get you really thinking about things that might help you to craft better stories. So with that said, everyone have fun crafting your villains. It should be fun. If it's not, you're doing it wrong. And just have a wonderful week of writing and creation, and I will talk to you next week. Bye. Thanks for listening today. If this episode helped or inspired you in any way, would you do me a solid and leave me a review? Reviews help other fiction authors find the podcast. You could also recommend it to a writer friend of yours so they can get the same inspiration you got. Remember, you have a story inside you that only you can tell. So get out there and write your soul story, because your readers are waiting for it with bated breath.